So welcome back to my Road to Marvel's Black Widow series. This week we are in week 12, which means we're talking about Ant-Man. And I know what you're thinking, oh Shane, what is with all the Wasp figures in the background? The Wasp wasn't even in this movie. But it's either that or it's going to be very bare in the background. If you think this is bad, wait until you get to Doctor Strange, because all I've got is a Doctor Strange pop. I remember when they first announced that Paul Rudd was going to be our Ant-Man, and I, like many other people, was like, really? Paul Rudd? Because he just doesn't seem like the superhero type. For me at that time, I knew him best from comedies like The 40-Year-Old Virgin, or even most notably, he played Phoebe's husband in Friends. So that's who I knew him as, and I was really thinking, okay, him as a superhero in the Avengers, can he really work off with Iron Man, with Captain America? I just didn't know what to expect, because I was expecting a very serious take, which I think Scott Lang, he's got the comedic elements down, because of course it is Paul Rudd, and the comedic elements really make up his character. Of course he has serious moments, but the comedic moments is where this character shines, and he's just by far great. And Paul Rudd is just such a memorable and such a likable guy, and even in this role he's so memorable and so likable. Now this movie as well is just fantastic. Of course the rest of the cast, you do have Evangeline Lilly, who I am not familiar with. All I've seen her in is the Ant-Man movies and then Avengers Endgame. But for what she is, I like her. I think she's a good Wasp. I think she plays off Ant-Man, or Paul Rudd's Ant-Man, really, really well, because he's the more kind of joking around character. She's a more serious character, so I think they play off each other really, really well. Also, you do have Michael Douglas, and as far as I know, this is all I've seen of Michael Douglas. I could be wrong, I could have seen him in other things, but from memory, this is all I've seen him in, and I just think he plays the role of Hank Pym so brilliantly. He just feels like such an old hero who was a hero back in the day, who retired from it and now is a mentor to Scott Lang. I just think he works really well as that main kind of a previous Ant-Man incarnation, and it's just the older mentor figure. He just plays it really well. Also, the guy, I'm blanking on his name right now, but the guy who plays Darren Cross, who was our villain, he's okay. He's quite forgettable. I was kind of forgetting who he was before going into it. I was trying to remember stuff I could remember from it, and I knew he was a bald guy who became Yellow Jacket, but other than that, I couldn't really remember anything about him. I just find him, he's just one of those generic Marvel villains, nothing really new. He feels very much like Obadiah Stane in the first Iron Man movie, and people always said they didn't understand how he went crazy in that one. They kind of say in this movie why he goes crazy. Of course, it's the particles getting at him, but it's just such a flip. It literally is a 180 flip from him being a normal guy to being absolutely crazy. It just comes out of nowhere in this movie. So I wasn't really a fan of his character story. It just completely goes all over the place, especially the ending fight when he is willing to kill a little girl. Honestly, his character really just didn't like. And then finally, we do have Michael Pena playing Lewis, I think the character's name is, and he is a fan favorite. Everyone loves that character. Like as soon as he came out and his story started, and I hear his little song in the background, I just got so excited to see his storytelling again, because the way they decided to tell for him to tell stories, it's just such a unique, hilarious way. And I'm still hoping, as most people are, I imagine, that Disney puts out on Disney Plus a small, maybe it doesn't have to be long, 5-10 minute scene of Lewis just telling the Avengers, the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe story in that storytelling element. I just think that'd be fantastic. I really hope they do something like that. Not only for Disney Plus, maybe at the start of Ant-Man 3, he's catching someone up on it. I think that'd be fantastic actually. Maybe if they do go ahead and put the Fantastic Four in Ant-Man 3, they catch them all up, let Lewis tell the story of the MCU. That would just be fantastic. And this movie starts off in a pretty interesting place, giving us a flashback to 1980s. And the interesting thing they did with this, instead of getting a younger actor to play Michael Douglas's role of Hank Pym, they actually de-aged Michael Douglas, and it just looks better in later MCU movies. But for the first time in the MCU, it looked great. I remember seeing it as a kid, well, not a kid, but 5 years ago when this came out. I was like, jeez, that looks amazing. And then it gets even better in Ant-Man and the Wasp, and then in Captain Marvel even better. But I was just so surprised at how well they were able to capture someone and de-age them to make them look a lot younger. Now, you can kind of see a bit around the eyes, but other than that, I think it looks really flawless and really good. But the scene itself, I love that scene for one reason in particular, and the fact that it's great for world building. Up to this point, we were at Captain America 1940s, and it was a massive jump to the early 2000s when we got Iron Man. So there was loads of room in the middle to see what actually happened there. Now we've got Ant-Man happen there back in the 80s, 70s and 80s. We got Captain Marvel happens in the 90s. So the world is just feels a bit more fuller. The fact that there wasn't such a big 60, 70 year gap from when Captain America was to the first Iron Man movie. I just think it helps build the world a lot more, and it also helps us get understanding of why Hank Pym wouldn't share his Pym particles, why he's not a fan of the Starks, and all of it. I just think it works really well at helping to build this world and actually make it feel a lot more lived in than it was prior to this movie. So our first scene that shows us what Scott Lang can actually do is when he breaks into Hank Pym's house, and it shows the smarts this guy actually has. First, when he breaks into the house, he comes up to a big door that has to be opened with a thumbprint, and then you think, okay, this is the end of the mission. How the hell is he going to get a thumbprint? But no, he goes up to the stove, he gets the door handle, thumbprint, all of it. It's just a smart, clever way of being able to get into this room. And then when he gets into it, there's another safe door, and then he immediately decides to freeze the door because he knows once it does, all the bolts and everything are going to pop out and the door is going to go smack down. It's a great way to show that he's not just an ordinary guy. He's actually a guy who's smart, who is well able to be up there. He's a smart guy. He's not just a funny guy. I just think that scene in particular worked really well to show off how smart this guy actually was. That does follow up then. He's in the bathroom the next scene, and we get to see our first proper introduction to the Ant-Man suit. The Ant-Man suit in this movie in general though, it's definitely the weakest. It's a lot darker than it is in Civil War than the Ant-Man the Wasp and Endgame. I prefer that suit a lot more. It's a lot more red. The helmet in particular as well. I think the helmet looks a lot more modern. Of course, that is a helmet from the 80s, so it makes sense why that's like that. I do like the suit, but I just prefer the later installments of the Ant-Man suit. But then when he does shrink, he's in the bathtub. Lewis turns the water and he gets pushed out. You see, he just as he gets pushed out of the bath, he falls on the tile, and he's just a little blip, but he cracks the tile. He falls downstairs. He's in the middle of a nightclub getting thrown around. Goes down to a house, gets sucked up in the Hoover, gets thrown out of the Hoover, and a big massive rat chases him. He falls out, lands on the top of a car, a little blip again. It looks like a rock falling on top of a car, and then he becomes big, and he's like, no way am I doing that again. Goes to return it, and then he gets arrested. All of that, I just think, sets up who Scott Lang is in a funny way, but also lets us know who he is as a person, that he doesn't really want to steal. He's only doing it to be able to see his daughter, and the fact that I just think it's a funny scene in general. So after then we see it, that Hank Pym lets Scott Lang know what the plan is. He says a little quippy joke of saying, oh, we should just call the Avengers. Hank Pym gets annoyed by that and says, oh, they're too busy dropping actual cities from the sky. Funny moments. Then we go into the montage, which the montage has funny moments, which a lot of this movie is just funny moments rather than great moments. I think the funny moments in the montage are really good. I think when he's trying to get through the keyhole of the door, shrink and then pop back big again, and he keeps running into the door, all of it is really funny. I just think it's kind of a boring kind of montage because it's just kind of him doing ordinary tasks but just getting from small to big. It's nothing great, it's nothing memorable, and I think this movie, as I said, Age of Ultron, I think instead of rewatching it, I'd rather rewatch scenes. I really do enjoy the first Ant-Man movie, but I wouldn't really watch scenes of this. I think the only way I'd watch it is watch the movie. I really wouldn't ever go and watch scenes. I've gone to YouTube, I've used to work, I'm like, okay, let's watch the Portal scene, or just random scenes throughout the entirety of the MCU. I've never wanted to watch an Ant-Man scene. I like the movie, but I just never have ever wanted to just watch a particular scene. And when it comes to fight scenes, they're always scenes I like to go to, but none of the fight scenes in this movie really stand out to me. Of course, you got the final one at the end, which as I was watching, I was like, this is just them punching each other with lasers. There's nothing great about it. The only kind of interesting element to it is the fact that they're small and tiny, but we don't know, we can't really see that they're tiny because we are zoomed in and we're seeing them fight. We do get the really funny moment when it zooms out, it's a big massive fight on the train tracks, and then it zooms out and they're tiny little things, which is funny. But the fight scenes in this movie are just generic. There's nothing new, nothing really stands out to me about the fight scenes in this movie, except for the Falcon one. And the reason that stands out to me is because it stands out. It just does not fit with this movie at all. As it's watching, it's like the movie is playing, it's going along really well, and it just comes to a halt for the Marvel Easter eggs to be thrown in there, having the Falcon there. It just really doesn't work, and apparently that's one of the deciding factors of why Edgar Wright left. He didn't want that scene, and I think it doesn't really work in this movie. Honestly, I just think it feels really, really out of place to throw Falcon in this movie in that kind of little small cameo he does have. But I know I did just say there's no memorable scenes in this movie, but the thing I do love about this movie is the fact that it's not just a normal generic movie where it's hero versus bad guy. This is a heist movie, and we haven't talked about the heist yet. And the heist itself is a lot of fun. You see everyone working together, especially Lewis when he punches the guy, or the two guys outside, or even Ant-Man just going around the place. All of the heist elements work really, really well. First, like they have to break into Pimp Tech, I'm pretty sure it's called. They have to break in there, then they get like kind of captured, then they have to break out, and the way they break out is literally blowing the places to bits, driving a tank through the wall. All of it, just, it's such a fun sequence. All the back and forth between our characters, all really fun. You got Evangeline Lilly trying to be really serious up against Lewis, who's just punching people and then getting in their face as they're on the ground. He goes, oh wait, shit, this is a serious operation, so he kind of calms himself down again. All that does work well for the most part, but other than that, it's like not that memorable. It's just there is loads of funny moments, and the kind of main story of the heist I just think is very memorable, even though the movie itself isn't that memorable. And as I said at the start, Darren Cross is an extremely forgettable one-note villain, and his death is extremely forgettable. As I was trying to remember the movie at the start, I was like, I know he dies because he's not in any future installments, but how does he die? Does he get killed? Does he just die of his own accord? Could not remember anything about it. Now, as it played out, I was like, oh, okay, this is it. And as well, I was actually telling my girlfriend prior to, I think Iron Man 3 we watched together. And then when Aldrich Killian got his hand cut off, I told her, oh, you know, everyone in Phase 2, at least one, in every movie, someone gets their arm chopped off because of Empire Strikes Back. And I was telling them all, and I literally stopped at Ant-Man. I'm like, I can't remember who it is. I said, it's probably Yellow Jacket, probably one of his arms got chopped off. But I could not remember, and then as it played out, I was like, oh, yeah, okay, so it's just his arm literally just gets ripped off. It was like just a blink and you miss it kind of thing. Didn't really think about it, and it just, I think his kind of twist, his big villainous arc in this movie is just massively, massively disappointing. It's just really one note. It's really forgettable, but it does end with Scott Lang going subatomic to actually defeat him, and then he goes in, and he kind of gets out pretty quickly, like a bit too quickly for someone who I can't remember, Michelle Pfeiffer being stuck in there for years. Of course, he does have that little chip that's able to get him out quickly, but it's just a bit weird. He's able to get out really, really fast, but then Michelle Pfeiffer's been stuck in there for 30 years. She hasn't been able to think of a way. Hank Pym hasn't been able to think of a way. I just think, yeah, it's a bit weird. He got out really, really quickly. But that's just my opinion on the first Ant-Man movie. Let me know your opinion on the first Ant-Man movie in the comment section down below. In summary though, I do enjoy the movie. I do have fun with it. It is very funny. It's great to see Paul Rudd in this heroic role. But other than that, as I kept saying, it's just a very forgettable movie. Not a lot really stands out to me. Like, I remember stuff, but nothing really stands out. Not many lines stand out, except for, you know, that Baskin Robbins always finds out, which is just a funny line in and of itself. But other than that, as I said, not very memorable. In terms of ranking, it's probably middle of my MCU. It's like right above all the bad movies. Like, it's probably above The Incredible Hulk, just slightly, but it's like, I'd say it's my 5th or 6th to the bottom. I don't really know. I'm kind of just saying this off the top of my head now. But I did enjoy it. I'm actually excited now for Civil War to see Ant-Man, because I think Ant-Man's great in Civil War. As well, Ant-Man and the Wasp. I really enjoyed Ant-Man and the Wasp last time I watched it, so I'm looking forward to rewatching that. So if you do want to see all of them in the future, make sure to click on the subscribe button so you can be sticking around for my future installments in this Road to Marvel's Black Widow series. Next week is Civil War, which I'm really excited to rewatch because it's been surprisingly a long time since I've seen Civil War. I'm looking forward to seeing Spider-Man again, Black Panther again. This is when it gets balls to the wall crazy, and I'm really excited to continue watching this series along. So if you want to watch it along with me, make sure you do click the subscribe button, and as always, thanks for watching.